Hall effect keyboards. You know them, you've seen them, you have witnessed the monumental achievements done with them. We all know how overpowered this keyboard feature is, but how good is it in actuality? Today, we'll be taking a look at how impactful Hall effect has been for osugame and the VSRG community, and testing the limitations of this technology. Let's just get into it, shall we? To start off the video, let's go over some backstory regarding these types of keyboards, specifically with the technology that is powering them. Hall effect actually predates what we know by 2 entire centuries, as it was discovered back in the 1800s in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The guy responsible for its founding, Edwin Ho, did it while conducting an experiment in electromagnetics. He started an experiment using a golden leaf, a glass plate, and 2 slim sheets of electroconducting and semiconducting material placed perpendicularly to the golden leaf to see how the current would pass through the leaf as he tapped it at different points. The result from his experiment turned out to be varying conductivity between the 2 conducting materials, creating an opposite magnetic resistance known as the Hall resistance. With that out of the way, I know you might now be asking yourself, wasn't Wooding the first one to release such a keyboard? No, not even by a long shot. The first commercially available products with this technology were released in September 1968, and the company Honeywell was the one to initially produce the first keyboard with this technology. At that time, prices were set to $100 US, which in today's money would be almost 1,000. It would primarily be used in the spheres of nuclear management and aerospace engineering, where the use of variable actuation would be most beneficial in very crucial moments. The technology was even recreated over at the Eastern Bloc, with socialist Czechoslovakia creating Zbrojovka Brno bez klávesnice, or console for short, which would go on to be used in places like the infamous Chernobyl. An adjacent type of switches to analog would be created around that same time as well, called the optical switches, but those wouldn't see the light of day commercially for a few more decades. That being said, let's get to the more modern days. The push for modern Hall effect wouldn't happen until 2018, and before that, the optical keyboards were the talk of the town in the middle of the 2010s, though the hype train for commercially available analog keyboards was kicked off by Wooding themselves, who created a Kickstarter around 2018 on their motto of the Wooding 2. The switches they initially used for the keyboard were ones that actually predate the lacquer switches we know and love today. They used an earlier type called FlareTech. Unfortunately for us, it would not be commercially available for sale until around 2021. There is a keyboard that actually predates this one, and it was the SteelSeries Apex Pro, released back in 2019, with their type of Hall effect being called Omnipoint Adjustment. And here, I want to make a pause to say that I've seen a handful of people use the Apex Pro. It really did provide them with the needed speed to keep up with whatever difficulty was thrown in their face, but it also didn't come without its instabilities, as many of the people who owned it experienced input issues. Technically, the Hall effect keyboard started being used since 2019 and 2020 because of SteelSeries, but the technology was pretty new for the game and it didn't go mainstream at first. But right as the Wooding 60HE released, it started quickly making rounds inside Osu Standard, and then entering Mania shortly afterward. On Osu Mania specifically, many plays would be made on 2 types of keyboards, either Wooding's or Drunk Deer's lineup of keyboards, because at the time they were deemed the fastest among the bunch. With that backstory out of the way, let's get to the actual question. How good are Hall effect keyboards in actuality? To try and give an answer to that question, I decided to volunteer myself for this section and play the hardest beat maps I possibly can to see how far I can go. And with what keyboard, you might ask? This is the Nufiex BH65. Not sponsored, by the way. A rapid trigger keyboard that is compact, fast, and very reliable. Even my girl can attest to how good it is. In my case, it comes with the Gateron Magnetic Jade Pros that actuate at 36 grams, it's looped straight out of the box, and in my experience the switches are pretty good for rhythm gaming. Its web software is very customizable, has options to prevent misinputs and double inputs, and not only that, this video you are currently watching is written on this exact same keyboard. There we go. Does it look good? Come on. Does it look good?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. If you want me to do a separate video on it, you can tell me in the comments. I will facilitate it if people want it. Now when we're equipped with the necessary gear, we can start off playing. We are starting off with streams. My personal experience playing streams with rapid trigger on has been pretty comfortable, even when I'm unwarmed. I'm a part of the crowd that usually doesn't manage streams, so having it to act most stream patterns or last longer than I usually would with my Cherry MX keyboard is a pretty welcome change in my sessions. Many of my push scores are mainly these two patterns. I personally have next to no issue with these two, and if anything, I've gotten even better at what I play when I get to warm up with them. My finger control got better, and this helps me get stronger and consistent scores in some specific cases. Next up, we're off to jacks. When warming up on various patterns, I very quickly found out that during my warm-ups, my stamina doesn't run out as fast as it would usually do. Because of the rapid actuation that these patterns usually require, I personally find next to no issues playing mini jacks, chord jacks, quads, anchors, and basically anything above 160 BPM. Having the stamina is a different beast in itself. Because my skill set is not really that jack heavy, I thrive more on continuous and straining beat maps. Regardless of that, I would definitely recommend rapid trigger whenever you have to play anything 150 BPM and up, as this would ease up the strain your wrist would usually develop while playing through them. Oh boy, how do I even start this section? I absolutely hate playing long notes with rapid trigger enabled. It is one of the sets of patterns that usually have my accuracy thrown off because of the timing. I've seen tremendous dip in accuracy due to how I've personally tweaked my LM body, and that, coupled with the rapid trigger, doesn't really help me to be more accurate in this type of patterns. And I have a penchant for long notes, courtesy of Bluestone of course. I have found that the sweet spot for me is just having the adjustable accuracy at around 1mm, which makes it pretty effective to hit the patterns. When the LN tails on a beat map are shorter, I can make up for the difference in accuracy, but I personally do not recommend playing long notes with rapid trigger on, especially during your first month of getting acquainted with the technology. Coming up to the very last set of patterns, I want to start off by saying that I'm personally a tech enjoyer. With that said, you won't be surprised that I love playing them with rapid trigger on even more. When I encounter anything that is speed oriented, I have no issues playing, and if anything, it helps me excel at these types of technical patterns even more. One beat map I specifically had a nice experience on was Medusa Bomber. Now with my experience with Hall effect out of the way, I have decided to reach out to a few top players for their opinion on this technology and for what level they would recommend it. We'll first start off with the one and only Jigzu123. The first question I ended up asking him was about his first personal experience with Hall effect.
Basically, the best way to describe it is when you use rapid trigger, at least for a player like me, right? Because back then I was sort of like a very fast, mash player, didn't care much about technique and stuff, very conservative stamina player, right? So with all of that, the best way I can really describe it is everything just takes less effort. Now, for consistency stuff, like lower BPMs, higher accuracy, you're just way more consistent, and you may have the chance, like, instead of dropping a miss, for example, you get a good or a great. Yeah, the best way to describe it is things just take way less effort. Notes that you feel like aren't supposed to be hit, just hit, right? That can sometimes throw you off a little bit, and I've noticed that on maps like chord jacks, where the BPM is like especially high, and you trade you hitting notes for a potentially worse ratio or accuracy.
Yeah,
so instead of missing, you can have way worse MA and worse PA. That's what I've noticed in higher density BPM chord jacks.
I'm sorry for interjecting, but I do completely agree with Jokes on this. The immediate skill boost Hall effect gives makes you feel better, and it takes less skill because the pressure needed to press has been completely removed from the equation. With his answer to this question laid out, I also mentioned my own personal experiences with the technology and told him about my skill range.
That is also something that I'd like to mention, is that Hall Hall effect isn't just a I get it now and instant skill boost. It is actually a skill that you have to learn, especially if you're at a level like you. Because someone like me is already used to such small distances of inputs that it was very easy for me to transition to. And even then, it took me like a bit of time to get used to. But for a player that is much less skilled, actually utilizing rapid trigger to its benefit, that's actually a skill in its own.
With our next interviewee, Ayan, the case played out a little bit different.
Okay, my first experience with the Wu-Ting is the only Hall effect keyboard I've ever had, was like, I don't know if it was placebo or if it was because of the keyboard, but I had like a massive jump in skill, I guess. And I do have a story that perfectly fits that. I think it was like the 28th of August is when it arrived. And before that, I think I still had a mechanical keyboard, but it wasn't like anything like rapid trigger or Hall effect or anything like that. It was just like some like 30-40 pound keyboard, and I had like a 94 on Epsilon, I think. And then 2 or 3 days after having the Wu-Ting, I went from 94 straight to like 96, and I cleared it on like the second time ever trying on a Wu-Ting.
The second question I asked both of them was how Hall effect has changed their playing experience. Jugzu initially started by tackling LN.
In the end, if you think about it, all it really does is just shorten your release timing.
Yeah.
Basically, it just takes a bit more time to get used to, but like after a few weeks, at least for me, if you do it smartly and get used to it in a few days, it's just a bit earlier than you think, and that's it. Like, I've not really run into any issues with long notes regarding rapid trigger. It is easy to break notes. I've realized that slider breaking is much easier. But other than that, like, most people complain about the release timing. It's just earlier. So if you get used to that, then it's a non-issue. Like, I'm pretty much used to it. So my long note skill has basically surpassed my peak long note skill before using rapid trigger, and that was a while ago. And I do not play long notes anymore.
I don't think it's had like, obviously it's had an effect, but I don't think it has like a huge effect or like as big as an effect as people think it is. Because like, if I switch back to my old mechanical keyboard, I would still be able to clear Zeta. Like, I've cleared Epsilon on my old mechanical keyboard, and on someone else's setup I overcleared Epsilon. I don't think the keyboard had an effect on how quickly I was improving, but I think it did give me like a little spike in, not in skill, but just in like the quality of scores I was getting, just because, you know, the keyboard has got more reliable inputs and you need less effort to actually like lift your finger and put it back down on the key, so it's just easier.
Truth be told, the difference with release timing can really be felt, and I can tell you that release timing on LN matters a lot. Then I asked them both about whether the claims companies make do hold up. Jigsaw immediately started off with this.
Let's start off with the elephant in the room. Now, I assume this video is releasing in a few weeks. But let's talk about Wu-Ting for a minute. So many people overhype Wu-Ting, like severely overhype Wu-Ting, severely overhype. Everybody says Wu-Ting has the fastest keyboard or the lowest of latencies or the best keyboard ever. I could not disagree any further. And the reason why is it gives you so bad of a value for its price. Like, let's take the 60HE V2 for example. Yep. You have 190 euros, I'm gonna use euros, that's around $222. You get a plastic case, and the keycaps are the same as the V1. And if you want an aluminium case, that bumps it up to 240 euros, which is $280.
My God.
With the same keycaps as the V1, stabilizers that feel the same as the V1, and performance, you know, the only thing that makes a difference are the switches. And most people will tackle on the fact that, oh, it has 8K polling rate, and true 8K polling rate. But here's the thing, I've already talked about this in my MCHOS A68 Turbo video, and I've already mentioned this before in that video. Companies are focusing on what does not matter. Nobody in the world will notice anything more than 1k hertz. The only time you would ever notice a 1k hertz is if you pressed over 1,000 notes a second, which I do not think you're doing.
Yup.
So when you have a keyboard that has true 8k polling rate, if you suck, then you suck. Your keyboard can only do so much for you, and that is also the trap that people run into when getting rapid trigger. They think it solves a lot of their problems with skill, and that it helps them skill boost.
With Hi, things got a bit... You know what? I'm gonna let the entire thing play out.
I remember that Wu-Ting said that their keys could last 1 billion presses before they break. Explain why I've broken 8 keys on my keyboard then.
What the when the did this happen?
Yeah, wait, I will type in all of the keys that are broken.
What the bro, you're missing like 1% of your keys.
So wait, it's just the keycaps. So I guess in all fairness, the keys still work, but I'll try and get you a photo of one of the keys that with the thing missing.
Much later.
Oh yeah.
Okay, what did you do?
Right, just to show you, I was not exaggerating one bit, bro. It's just
Yeah, that happened. While it is low-key funny, it is not fully representative of the keyboard itself. With all of this in mind, I shot the final bullet and asked, at what point would you recommend Hall effect keyboards?
If you can afford Hall effect, get it. Because if you have a great keyboard from the beginning, something that has no limitations, you will objectively make gains faster because you do not have any limitation. Now, if you played, for example, on Hall effect since day one, you will make more progress than someone who started off with 125 Hz and later switched to Hall effect. So if you can get that great of a keyboard at the beginning, just get it, right? If you have the money for it, just get it.
Honestly, I would suggest that like if you're planning to like improve and play the game like long term to get to end game, if that's your goal, then get it as soon as possible. Because like you don't want any limitations.
After having the interviews with some of the top players mentioned above, I learned a substantial amount of information, but I can personally tell you that getting a Hall effect keyboard depends on you really. This technology has fundamentally changed mania in the VSRG scene as we know them, and has allowed many others to push beyond their usual limit, so I personally see no drawback in getting such a keyboard, if you can afford it. The earlier the better, especially if you are someone who wants to continuously play difficult charts and go even further beyond. And on top of that, you're the one in control of the whole device. You can set its actuation at any certain point and tweak anything on it. Though even if you don't, it's not an issue really. Everyone has a choice when picking out the hardware for these sessions. And don't get too overhyped from the benefits it will give you. Getting to play consistently on such a device has a little bit of a learning curve, and that learning curve really depends on how skilled you are and what you're playing. And this was a video on Hall effect and how good it was in VSRG. This was a low-key pretty enjoyable project to work on because not only did it allow me to delve deeper into this topic, but it also showed me how the top players have reacted to it. If you like me doing little fun projects like these, let me know down in the comment. I want to give a huge thanks to all of these amazing people on screen. Thank you for supporting the channel despite my disjointed upload schedule. Senior year in uni has been really kicking my ass. Also, I've been busy with working out and, you know, I hope to see you all next time. Now that the video is done, I am wondering who actually won Eurovision. I was gone for a while. You gotta be fucking kidding me.